Hey friends and family, this is Marilyn from tarotclarity.com, and today's video falls under the category of I'm just perusing my collection and I'm finding decks I forgot I had. And this one I thought was kind of interesting. It's called The Lost Tarot of Nostradamus. It's been out for a while. I'm not really sure what year I bought it, but I've had it for a few years. When I bought it, I just assumed that it was, art done in the style or the fashion of when Nostradamus, the great prophet or soothsayer, lived, I guess in the 1500s, and that it would have been a deck created in his style, from his period of time. But as it turns out, when you read the book, apparently there were documents found, I think, in the Vatican. The book explains it. It's been a number of years since I've read it, so I don't remember exactly everything it said. But as it turns out, these images were believed to have been Nostradamus's attempt at creating a tarot deck, because a lot of the art that they found, I think they found 80 images, were very similar to had he created a tarot deck. So it looked like he might have been creating a tarot deck. Now, it's not known which one of these were created by his hand and which were created by his sons, but it seems for sure that the Nostradamus men had a hand in this. Now, this deck was published by Tuttle Publishing Company. And I think the date that I just noticed was 2012. So it's been out for about 10 years, 12 years, something like that. 2012 is the publishing date. So I probably had it around that time, or I probably didn't buy it in 2012, but I probably bought it soon after 2016 or something like that. So anyway, I thought it would be fun to share. I haven't looked at this deck in a long time. So I thought maybe some of you might be interested in seeing it. Now I'm going to read maybe 2 paragraphs so I don't explain it wrong, using the images that were found. Surveying the material wasn't easy, as picture references for the pages of the manuscripts are surprisingly hard to find. And at this stage, we hadn't approached the library where the manuscript is held. However, we were able to assign images to all the major arcana cards without difficulty. This convinced us that we would indeed be able to recreate the Lost Tarot of Nostradamus. And that was it. Of course, it's apparent that from the point of view of a functioning tarot, the manuscript itself is an unfinished work. While many of the familiar images are there in striking details, others are not, especially in the case of the minor arcana. It's clear that if Nostradamus intended to create a tarot of his own, these were his ideas and his reinterpretation of already recognized tarot forms, which he didn't extend to every card. Consequently, we have used the drawings in the manuscript to construct a functioning tarot rather than resort to make anything up or bringing in supplementary drawings from other manuscripts. So it's, I guess, as legit as could be expected, and hoped for. So let me flip the camera. I'm sure you want to see these cards. Now, the one thing I'll say is that the card stock is kind of abysmal. It's basically, nothing more than stiff cardboard. And let me compare it to, I have an artisan deck right here. Plug them. The Rider Marseille. I did a review and a few readings with it a couple of videos ago. So the Rider Marseille is a smidge bigger than a typical tarot deck, because I think when I measured it before, a typical deck would be from here to this line here. So the Nostradamus deck is a bit wider, definitely, than a standard tarot deck. But the cardstock is cardboard, and because of the cardstock being, cardboard, it's rather thick. Let me compare it to the Rider Marseille by Artisan Tarot, and let's see the difference in thickness. You can see, right? It's quite thicker. It's quite thicker, right? So because of the cardboard stock being so thick, it's very thick. And I don't know. I think it's awful, kind of. Okay, here are the backs. Pretty nice. Now, I don't know if this archway is something that modern day publishers imposed. Obviously, they put in the numbers, and they put in the titles because they're in English, obviously. But they were able to assign the drawings to the characters of a tarot deck, especially for the Triumph cards, is what I just read to you. But I don't know if they, I have a feeling the publishers just put in this artificial arch. So here we have a fool with the absence of a dog, and there's writing on the card, I'm guessing in French. So you can see, what was going on in the mind of the 1500s man of, I don't know how we would categorize him, but definitely a spiritual man, or a man who was very clever. So it's not so hard to assign who's who. And here, look, we see the profile of the emperor, which is interesting. So that must have been entrenched. It's interesting. An angel in a box for the Chariot. Justice is 8. And it would have been, by this time, over in France, it would have been 8. And there's, how Prudence and the Hanged Man were associated perhaps at that period of time. We have a snake represented for the Hanged Man. It's an interesting depiction of temperance, isn't it? Wow. There's no mistaking that card. And the fire's from within. The completed world. The chalice with a fleur-de-lis. Yeah, you wonder how they, recognize this as the world rather than the Ace of Cups, right? Because I think they don't have a suit of cups. So the suits are different. We have stars for swords. And you might, given the period of time that this was created, you may see alchemical and astrological, definitely astrological references in this deck, or whatever sciences that Nostradamus was into, we would see reflected in these cards for sure. Particularly in the backgrounds. Now, I'm waiting for somebody to say, does it read like a Rider-Waite-Smith? Now, if it was created in the 1500s, that there wouldn't be any Rider-Waite-Smith references, of course, right? I mean, as far as what the modern publishers may have done to update it or to, they didn't use any art from any other source. They strictly relied on the art from the manuscripts or the documents or whatever they call them from the Nostradamus collection, right? So there's that. But I think the publishers took some liberties with the pip cards because perhaps they just couldn't identify which card was which, right? But he seems to have created the images to represent the meaning that he felt was the card was about. Now you'll notice the names of the court cards are different. We have, and for each suit, I think the court cards are a little different. Okay, so here we have the suit of moons, which would have been cups. So the suits are clearly represented, with a symbol or an emblem, and also by color. The swords were, the stars were like a beige background with a scalloped arch. These are silver. The moons are silver with a rounded arch. Look how beautiful though, huh? So in a way, it's a historic deck. Except that, it wasn't probably completed in his time. I think, or it wasn't known. And I guess it wasn't completed. So here we have suns for batons. I don't think I ever really read with these. I figured I couldn't, read with these because they. Okay, it's not that you can't read with these. Definitely, could you just use them as they are? You don't have to apply any other system to it. You just read them as their own system, right? And however you identify with each card, and what you understand. If you understand the references to things, it's probably right up your alley. Certainly these are really good meditative purposes. And when I got this deck, I definitely read the book from cover to cover and was fascinated by each and every image, even if I don't use the deck. I think it's definitely a deck that I'm happy to have in my collection. And it's still being published. It's not out of print, I don't think. So, but as I said, the card stock is a bit abysmal. It's a major disappointment, Oh, what's the name of this one? The Alchemist. It's for the final card, or the equivalent to the king card of coins. Now, I guess those are, what are these? The world of the globes. So the suits, I think, are star, moon, suns, and globes. For swords, cups, batons, and coins, respectively. And so there you have it. So I hope you enjoyed this, and so it's definitely a fun thing to have. It's fascinating. The book is a great read, very fascinating. And until next time, friends, peace and stay well.